Back on the charts now for session 2. All of them with the 15-minute time frame on again, and the relevant Ichimoku parts we can see over on the cable here. Price inside the cloud, and it's a big cloud as well. Could take a while to get out of that one. Tenkan Sen currently above the Kijun Sen, so not looking like a trade there anytime soon. And on the Yappy, Tenkan Sen again above the Kijun Sen, price this time above the Kumo cloud. So again, we are going to need to see price come off of those highs if we do want to get an entry. It's a thin cloud though down here, so we might not get stuck in the cloud with price. Could be a silver lining of it, we will see in the future. Aussie Caddy in a similar situation, cloud not as thin, but price is above it and the Tenkan Sen is above the Kijun Sen. So all these charts looking like they might not get a signal anytime in the near future. If we were likely to see one, I think it would be the cable, maybe if the pound started selling off all the way down beneath the cloud and we get the Tenkan across the Kijun once this high is gone. We'll be waiting, so let's take a look at the economic calendar. National Australian Business Confidence Index. That's not the central bank, that's a private bank, the National Australian Bank. The central bank is the Reserve Bank of Australia. They scored a 12 actual, which is down from the forecast and the previous. 17 was forecast, 21 was the previous. So certainly a miss there, but they are above the benchmark of 0. Japanese industrial production month on month. They had quite a nice actual there, 1.8% against a forecast and previous of 1.1%. Swedish registered unemployment rate 7.2% against a 7% forecast. Doesn't drift far from where they're at, but it is a bit high on the whole. Also had the year-on-year wholesale price index from India. Don't forget yesterday they did have a consumer price index year-on-year, the CPI. That came in at 4.91%. Much better than on the wholesale side of things, 14.23% actual. That is considerably high. A few Great British Pound jobs numbers as well. Unemployment rate 4.2%. That was against a forecast of 4.1 and a previous of 4.3, so a very small miss, but not far from the mark. And they did get a nice figure on the claimant count change as well. They expected 35,000 near enough additional claimants, and they actually had 50,000 less, so beat the forecast by 84.6 thousand. Producers price index month on month from Switzerland, 0.5% actual against 0.2% forecast, so a little bit high there, especially with a 0.6% previous. But this is going on everywhere. It happens in Sweden as well. They get a 0.5% actual, although their previous was only 0.2%. They had forecasts of 0.1% this month. So even though the economic calendar technically reads this as a beat, realistically it's not. And it does bring their year-on-year CPI to 3.3% against 3.5 forecast. Higher than the general average target of 2. But not as bad as some of the yearly figures we've seen coming out of some other Western countries. So that's what we've had. 12 o'clock, we've got the Eurozone as a whole, industrial production month on month. Forecast negative 0.3%. I'm sure they would like a positive figure there, but they have been somewhat struggling. And then we can skip past the Brazilian numbers. The US dollar though, 330. The sole number we're getting, producers price index month on month. 0.6% forecast, 0.6% previous, so pretty high. But that is the number to watch for the day. And also the 2-day policy meeting of the Fed starts today. We get the news conference at the end of tomorrow from Chairman Jerome Powell, but that could see some volatility at some point. It's going to be jittery. High inflation over there, the annual rate currently at 6.8%. So we could hear more hawkish tones coming out of the Fed from this meeting. Maybe quickening the taper or raising interest rates sooner. We'll have to wait and see, but we could definitely get some impact on the charts from that. Back on the charts now, and it does look like we could be waiting a while once again. These trades don't come along every period, so we'll sit it out and see what comes. Just after 12 o'clock, and it is a good beat for the Eurozone on the industrial production month-on-month figure. 1.1% actual against that negative 0.3% forecast. Really nice improvement for them. On the charts, not much going on for us, no change. Continue to see all these Tenkan Sen lines above the Kijun Sen lines, and we're going to see some sort of cross. 1 o'clock now, another hour on, and still nothing shaking for us. The picture remains relatively unchanged. 2 o'clock here at On the Hour update again, and still nothing to add. We see the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar is really pushing to the upside. That's a continuation move, and we've seen the Euro Japanese yen stay in a range really the last hour or so. It looks ready to push though. Those Tenkan and Kijun lines are still chasing price. And over on the pound US dollar, that's been going up for the last hour. Reached new highs in the last period, has pulled off from there, but could easily go again. The dollar is weakening a lot ahead of this Fed meeting. 3 o'clock, not much of an update here again, same situation stands. We are seeing price come off the top on the Euro Japanese yen, and same with the Aussie dollar a little bit, but that's about the only change. Just under 30 minutes until we get those US dollar PPI numbers. Maybe that can shake things up. Here comes those PPI numbers. doesn't seem to want to come through on the MetaTrader economic calendar, but I can tell you that the figure is 0.8%. But we're not seeing too much movement on the pound dollar at the moment. It's still ranging. Looks like it wants to come down off these highs, just like the euro yen has. We've seen a big plummet over the last 30 minutes, well, over the last hour and a half, really. That high up there. And since then, that's come back down about 0.2%, 26 pips. Strong downward trend. And eventually, if this continues, we have to see a crossover occur. At long last, maybe. We saw the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar threaten the same, and so because it's made such a low here, even if it continues to push upward, the Tenkan Sen and Kijun Sen will be affected by this low in price right down here. That's the one they'll be using. Well, the Kijun Sen's not using it yet, but it will in a bit. So as we see price come down on these charts, that does edge us closer towards the trade. But if we see a re-reversal and upward trends continue, then we shan't be getting in today. Just past 4:30, and there is a crossover on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. Tenkan Sen moves beneath the Kijun Sen, still above the Kumu cloud though, so it's not an entry signal for us, but maybe we get a recross now. 5:15, if we focus on our Australian dollar, Canadian dollar pair over here, big Commonwealth, the Tenkan Sen and Kijun Sen lines on top of one another now, and will be for a few periods at least. They're both using the high up here and the low down there. That is 5 periods back, so it's going to take at least 4 periods to shake that. Another big push from the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar as well. Up and up it goes. New highs for the day. Currently about 12 pips from the Kijun Sen. We're about an hour on now, and as we turn 6:30, yeah, we do see that the Tenkan Sen now diverges from the Kijun Sen on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar pair. Assuming it closes like that, which it almost certainly will. 15 minutes time, it will be entering a buy trade there. Hopefully we get a pullback. To be honest, don't want to be in a buy trade all the way out here. I mean, how far has this moved already? About 0.3%. Doesn't seem good to get an entry way out there. Hopefully get a candle like this, draws us back, we get in the buy trade, and then another push. Extremely optimistic. On the other charts, the Yuppie, if you got in off the crossover right here, that's a sell trade. That would have been pretty good. We couldn't get in it because it was still above the cloud at that point. At the moment though, that'd be nice for you. And over on the pound US dollar, we've seen a crossover there as well. But once more, the signals do not line up. A price is above the cloud when the Tenkan Sen goes through the Kijun, and so we cannot take a sell trade there. And it does look like we are going to get the pullback that we dreamed of here. It was even flirting with the idea of closing beneath the Kijun Sen line. Pulled back from there now. Just a few seconds to go. You can see exactly how our risk is calculated on screen. And so it's 2 sub trades at 0.71 standard loss with a 1% risk to each of them. And we're going to buy it. Not getting the best price there again. The spreads on this broker. Let's put the ask price line on. You can see that. Around about 2 pips. Not nice. Pretty nasty there actually. Either way, let's set the stop loss and the take profit. Sub trade A, 100 points at each of those levels. And for our sub trade B, we'll set the stop loss. 100 points, that's 10 pips. And we'll trail the stop loss if the Kijun Sen goes our way. Doesn't feel great starting with a 2 pip disadvantage. The aches of a quote-unquote commission-free broker. At least the take profit isn't above the high of the day though. If it's been there once, maybe it can get there again. And we have given it room to pull back a bit further if it wants to. Hopefully it does well. We'll actually close off the pound US dollar and the euro yen. Not going to take any trades on these tonight. Already getting into the evening, and interestingly, taking this trade at 6:45. That was the same time as yesterday on the euro yen we took our trade. That was our only trade. It's a mirror again. Wait all day and then get a trade right at the end of it. Hopefully it doesn't mirror yesterday's trade by going to the stop loss. So not looking good at all so far. Only 3 minutes into the trade and we are about halfway towards the stop loss. So uphill struggle now to get back into it. As we end the first period of the trade, it has been very close to our stop loss. Looks almost certain to proc it with just a few knocks down. 7:30 and our trade has been hanging in there since we entered it, basically beeline towards the stop loss, and then has hovered right by it ever since. All these candles making lows that are touching it, not quite knocking us out though. And there goes the stop loss. That was a quick shunt down, but it does get us, and we are starting to notice a pattern with these trades. We only had 2, one yesterday, one today, and not just the pattern of the time that they occur, 6:45 apparently, but with the actual indicator parts and how they work together. The signals that come seem to either be too soon or too late. So for example, you could take a buy trade with this crossover here, and depending on where you got out, that's about a 15 pip run, so there's a good chance you'd take profits somewhere in there. But you couldn't take it because price is beneath the cloud. And here's an example of the reverse. If you'd taken that sell trade there and ignored the cloud, that wouldn't have worked out for you. But by the time you get the second signal, the recross that says, yeah, now we're moving again, there tends to be a retracement due or some sort of failure with the indicator. We sort of did expect to see losing trades. If you backtest this indicator, you will see these exact problems pretty quickly. But yeah, it is amazing that if you go on the web, go on YouTube, Google, Ichimoku strategy, punch it in, this is one of the strategies that they say, yeah, do this when the crossover happens, you know, and you've got price above the cloud, hey, you're all good to go in there. And you do wonder, did you ever test the strategy yourself? Did you ever actually jump onto a chart and take a single trade and see the problems? My guess is not, but there we go. It's another losing trade, another 2% down on our capital. But it is a very small sample size, only 2 trades so far. So we will absolutely be back again to try and see some improvement on this strategy. Just get a single win at some point in the strategy. That would feel gratifying. It doesn't seem very probable at the moment, but there's plenty of time left to trade this one. Let's check out the journal with that extra trade before we go. Here is our updated journal. Another day, another trade loss. $232.84 down now, and this is really going to struggle to come back from this. And with both these trades coming so late into the day, 6:45 on both of them, you would be much better off if you finished your day at 5 o'clock. We'll keep pushing it though. These are the signals that everybody bangs on about. There's got to be a win sooner or later, you would think. Back tomorrow.